Hello and welcome to the Tolkien Society. We're a little light on our members today. They had a lovely weekend and people moving and looking for houses and people's cars breaking down and then Father's Day is tomorrow. We're a bit light on our member participation day, but fortunately Richard is here. Welcome, Richard.
Hello.
And I'm Hawk Robinson. I'm founder and president of the Tolkien Society. We are an official smile of the UK Tolkien Society. And let's make sure this time that we're actually recording audio, because with the last session and the session before, we went through the whole thing with no audio.
That's embarrassing.
That sucks. We've done it a few times over the
How hard is it
10 plus years.
edit in audio after the fact?
Well, you have to actually have the audio to edit it, and we had nothing, so impossible unless you want us to do voiceovers. Trying to figure out what the heck you're saying by lip reading.
It could be entertaining.
Oh yeah, well, we could do it like Mystery Theater 3000 or whatever it is. Yes, I'm doing it. So whoever's reading, like, yes, your mother was a hamster, and completely supplant it with whatever you want.
Speaking of Mystery 3000, there was one scene where they had this big, heavy-set biker sit down on a chair, and one robot turns to the other and says, "Cher has really let herself go."
Has really let her what go?
Cher.
Really has let herself go?
Yeah.
Ah. Okay, audio is working. Good.
It was a motorcycle biker with long hair, you know.
Right, yeah, I get it. And that's why you conflated chair and chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
Well,
Freudian slip is showing.
three letters are the same, so beginning and end, and that's often how we identify things. We make it more the middle.
Is it socially acceptable to sit on Cher?
Oh, careful. All right. So,
Sorry.
I apologize for the heat. I am trying to acclimatize myself. So, I'm getting married 4th of July.
I'm very heat tolerant.
And, okay, I'm not. And we're going to New Orleans in July.
What could possibly go wrong?
And so we're going, to have to deal with all that heat and humidity. And so normally, I have this place like a tomb. I try to keep the air conditioning cranked to sort of around 64, 66 degrees.
So have you had many Tomb Raiders drop by?
So anyway, but now it is currently 75 in here and hotter outside, and it will continue to rise. But I'm worried about the fan noise, so I'll turn that on and off. So let's go ahead and, so Brian, I guess, is not going to be here, our secretary, who usually reads the notes. Corey, we're not sure if he's going to make it.
He did send out the
He did. I got it published on the website. So you go to tolkienscholars.org, which is where I'm going right now. We can go over the meeting notes from last month. So for May 18th, 2019. So Brian writes, "Dear friends and fellow Tolkien literature enthusiasts, please accept the following notes from last month's meeting of the Tolkien Society of the Inland Northwest, USA. In attendance, Brian, Hawk, Richard, and Corey. Kristen, make it last week? Or last month?
No.
Okay, I guess that was the month before. I hope Kristen will be continuing. I know he moved all the way to Tri-Cities, so,
Yeah. It's a long commute.
Yeah. Brian read notes from the April meeting. Our discussion of notes included the lineage of Eärendil and the fall of Troy / story of Aeneas as a parallel of one spared in the sack of a noble city to do great deeds later. Number 2, Administrivia. Hawk updated us on a few items. We are no longer on Meetup. But what I did is I killed off the Tolkien Society Meetup group, because I can only have 3 meetup groups with what I pay every 6 months currently. And they want to charge like $10 a month to add per group.
Yeah, the writers group I go to started publishing an anthology, and they're using the profits of that to pay the fees for.
Right, and I don't receive any money from any of the meetups. So and we've been trying to get more active with the cooperative music jams and drum circles, and so I sacrificed the Tolkien Society to the shadow to make room for music, which is the Song of Art, Song of Creation.
Is that why I feel so drained?
But what I did do is, because we do incorporate a little bit of role-playing gaming into our Tolkien Society meetings, I try to insert a little bit. I went ahead and posted these meetings in our role-playing game group, which has over 900 members, by the way. So a lot more eyeballs will actually see the announcements with it being in there. And so it says that we will discuss Tolkien-related role-playing gaming, and thus can make it worth being on that, listed on that group. So it depends on what people want to talk about, but I will gladly discuss that in addition to all the other scholarly stuff. Because doing the role-playing game makes us ask questions and go deeper in a lot of ways that you might not otherwise, in a pure scholarly fashion, ask.
Yeah,
Practical issues and other issues.
when I sometimes run games, and then I write some of my stories based on those games, because the players push you in directions you never think you're going.
Exactly.
Because they want to. Well, what's that mountain like over in the distance?
Yeah,
and it's like,
exactly. So it better informs us on the Tolkien scholar side. It makes us better scholars to go off in more directions than we might in our own little bubbles. And if you look at Other Minds Magazine, which is both a scholarly and a gaming magazine at omz.org, it brings up all sorts of great stuff that other scholars actually find of interest to discuss and such that might not otherwise come up outside of the practical challenges that come up in gaming and the strange questions that gamers love to ask. So it is related, so I shoehorn that in. So we will, at least on the Spokane Coeur d'Alene role-playing game list, it will each month get an announcement to everybody in the RSVP page. So it is there. It's just no longer a separate group. I had hoped that other groups might pop up, but there just aren't enough Tolkien fans willing to go to a meeting for that to have ever caught on. So instead of a separate group, it's just a separate meeting, in meetup. So that's what I did since then.
Have you ever heard from that young couple that used to come a couple years ago?
They ping us from time to time. They've got busy lives, so yeah, we keep hoping they'll show up again. Brian heard from them not too long ago, I believe. So we have a new apprentice helping with tech, and so that will be helping us with overhauling the websites over time.
Always two there are.
And well, then who's my second apprentice? Because I only have one so far. I've had many others over the years, but it's been a long time since.
Oh no, it's usually an apprentice and master.
Oh, I see. So he'll be helping with all of our organizations, including Tolkien Society. A reminder that Tolkien has moved. Normally it was in July, third week, but because I'm getting married and be gone on my honeymoon, we postponed it. We had originally planned to move to September, but that's now falling when I'm going to be in a conference in Reno, like back to back almost, and it was too much, so we moved it to October 19th. And we're starting to do that this year, keep moving it, but weddings tend to throw things out of whack, so that's like that. We're still planning to do it. We're going to do Tolkien Move. So October 19th, we got everything cleared for that. We should be good to go. Number 3, other new. Remind me of talking about Cubicle 7, or is that already in here? Oh, it is right here. Yeah, the second edition. Cubicle 7 Games with press release about the second edition of the One Ring role-playing game. And they just sent out another blast yesterday with more details about that. So they're saying the older material will still be mostly compatible with the second edition. There'll just be a few minor tweaks and such to have to make, so that it's not like you have to start all over again, hopefully.
Well, I use what's been called Zen gaming.
What?
I use GURPS, but I only use it for making the characters, because people are very attached to having characters made. So it gives them something to focus on, and then I just get rid of the rules and they just go by what the story demands instead of what the rules say.
Okay.
So for me, that wouldn't be much of an issue.
Okay. Amazon Middle Earth series update. We talked about that last month. As far as the Lord of the Rings show time period, really is looking like Second Age. That's awesome. Reviews of the biopic film Tolkien. Chris, I swear Chris was here for that. I don't know. It said didn't list his
maybe I
name.
delayed him from my memory.
I mean, his name's not on here, but was it Corey? And, some people saw it and talked about it. Like I ran into
Brian.
What's that?
Might have been Corey and Brian.
Yeah, I think they both talking about it. I have not seen it
that other new kid that had been showing up periodically.
Wasn't here. All it was Yumi, Brian, and Corey, according to Brian here. Somebody at the door, the mailman was asking specifically about the movie, if he should go see it. Yeah, he walked up, he came up and rang the doorbell. He doesn't know, it wasn't because there was a package. He rang the doorbell specifically to ask me what I thought of the Tolkien movie.
Apparently
Because of the bus and trailer. Well, I mean, we are the only Tolkien Society in the Northwest at this point. We used to be one in Seattle, and they died a long time ago.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, we're the only Smile. The nearest one is in Montana. As far as I know, there's nothing in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, at least northern Idaho.
I thought there was nothing in Montana but grass.
Well, there's a Tolkien Society. And,
just kidding.
yeah. So we talked about that. Reviews of the film, and then there were reviews against it on the Tolkien Society blog. Led to a lively discussion on the possibilities and limitations of such a film about an author. References were made to X-Files, Stargate, and Farscape. See the video of our meeting for the details. Although does that one have audio? I don't remember. Number 4, our Smile then continued reading letters of Tolkien number 156 that started in April. Comments on Westerness as a synonym for Numenor. Tolkien plays with mythical paradigms and his belief system intermediaries. Number 5, we resumed reading the early version of The Fall of Gondolin, all taking turns reading, which we'll be continuing that today. It recounts the 11 houses readying the war against Morgoth's minions and monsters. The child Eärendil's dream and the armor he puts on. Question: was this perhaps the seed for J.R.R. Tolkien's later story of the mithril armor worn by Bilbo and Frodo? Something we were wondering about.
I brought it up because technically Eärendil was no
Right.
prince.
So did anybody research that?
I didn't know where to look, so
Okay.
I didn't.
You could have tried the Tolkien Gateway.
Oh. Okay.
Or any of our, you could go to omz.org, and we have all the archives of other AMs and other minds. Or you could go to merp.com, where we have all of Michael Martinez's essays.
I was watching Overly Sarcastic Productions, and they said their methodology was to look up a wiki article and skip the article and go to the references
Mm-hmm.
and look through the references
Sure.
when they were researching the topic.
Yep. Idril's tears over the sense of what will come. War Council. The attack like a Trojan horse, another Troy parallel. Hollow dragon monsters of metal. The wrath of Tur on Maeglin's betrayal, and Tur's rescue of Idril and Eärendil. Imagine what would have happened in Tolkien's epic if Eärendil had been killed at this point. The fight of their lives for the hidden city. And we stopped reading at Then Gothmog Lord of Balrogs. And remember, Brian was wearing his Seattle Mariners Eärendil sports shirt.
He's a real team player.
Indeed. Number 6, the next Tolkien Society would take place June 15th from 1 to 3 p.m. at Hawk's House. Also, tentatively, July 20th meeting is also planned. Confirmation. It's looking like I think I will be back. Let's see. So I should be back in time for the 20th, so we should still be able to do that, no problem. So July 20th, you know, if it was too close back to back to organize Tolkien Society, Tolkien Moot, but we can still do Tolkien Society.
Maybe you should send out another update when you got a firmer idea.
No, we're only going to be gone in Louisiana for like 10 days, so we'll be back in time. I just looked at the calendar, we'll be fine, so it's a go.
Fair enough.
And Namadier, your secretary, apologies that I'll be absent this Saturday. It's a great section, The Fall of Gondolin, to read though. So there we go. Brian's not coming today. Because I just got this email from him yesterday. So yeah, well, we miss him. We miss him greatly.
Indeed.
And I hope his house hunting goes well. If anybody's in the chat room and wants to discuss things, please do let us know. Does look like somebody's watching. All right. So, you had something you want to talk about regarding language?
Right. There's on YouTube. There's a.
And do definitely speak up loudly.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I just let you know.
On YouTube, there's a term that's shown up on my watching list called conlang.
And describe that.
Well, it's short for constructed language.
Constructed languages.
Dothraki from Game of Thrones fits in that category.
Dothraki, right?
Klingon fits in that category.
Right. Elvish.
Elvish.
From Tolkien, yep.
Yeah. And the primary, there's like 2 or 3 individuals posting videos on this topic. The one that comes to mind is Conlang Critic. That's his channel. And he goes into very detailed descriptions of languages, and frankly, it goes over my head.
Okay, so is it kind of like the Vineyard Tengwar folks?
Have you read
through the Vineyard Tengwar books?
Well, he's deconstructing the languages.
Right.
He lists out the consonants for each language.
Right.
And then he goes to the vowels, and then he discusses.
Yeah. So have you read any of the Vineyard Tengwar books?
I don't think so.
Because they are the Elfish society, and they are extreme linguistics. They have etymology. They have all the science of speaking and all of that. It's really heavy stuff. You really want to learn language, but they're also a great resource if you need a translation for a short phrase or something. We've used it when we were making the modules for Tolkien Moot.
His videos are about a half hour, and he's doing more of an overview of the language.
Cool. What's it called again?
His channel is Conlang Critic.
Conlang Critic.
Conlang.
All right. We'll have to put a link to that in our notes and such. Cool. But you said it was going a little over your head, but other than that, what did you think of it from what you could?
It was interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at parsing out details of pronunciation, which is kind of critical to his explanation of what's going on.
Right.
So that's why it's going over my head.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. We'll have to look further into that. Thank you. Anything else you wanted to say about that topic?
No.
Okay. Cool. Any other topics you wanted to bring up?
Put me on the spot.
Well, this is your chance. We're a little short-handed on participants today, so usually we do the whole round table
Should we get the mic to the lizard?
Yeah, that'll be a lot of dead air. We can zoom the camera in on his eyeball and watch it on the bearded dragon.
Nothing currently comes to mind.
Okay. So this is probably going to be a short Tolkien Society then, with just the two of us, unless Corey shows up. No, it's just the more people we have, the more we're able to cover.
Yeah.
Unless Corey shows up. Do you want to? Are you texting him?
I can.
You want to check if he's still planning to make it or if he's not going to? If we should, excuse me, if we should hold off on anything, waiting for him if he's just not going to come.
Well, we could start.
We will start. We'll start, but I just want to know if we're going to
poke.
wait for him.
See if he replies.
Okay, so let's go ahead and jump to letters first. Excuse me.
What was the last one?
So the last one was, going back to the notes here, Tolkien 156. Let's see.
want me to start out?
If you'd like. So I'm assuming we're 157 now. Unless we're still working on it, because that's a long one. Did we finish it?
I don't remember.
I'm not sure we finished that. Let's see. It says, continued reading the letters Tolkien 156 started in April. Comments of Westerness, Ascendant, Numenor. Tolkien plays with mythical paradigms and his belief system intermediaries. Okay, no, we finally finished it that session. All right, so now we're at 157, and it's just a single page, so here we go.
Short letter.
There. And do be sure to speak up so you be heard. If you want to hear a little, well, that's fine, the direction's fine. Just make sure you speak up.
I thought I'd mumble under my breath.
Yeah.
From a letter to Catherine Farrar, 27th November 1954. Second volume of The Lord of the Rings.
You want better light, maybe you do want to sit on that end of the couch because you
No,
want the light coming in.
It's good.
Okay.
I'm just really nearsighted, so taking off my glasses, I can read it.
Okay.
The second volume of The Lord of the Rings was published under the title The Two Towers on 11th November. I have felt very mean indeed, since I have known that you have both been ill and troubled, and I have never written or called or made any offer to help, or even sympathy, always meaning to, of course. To any eyes but those of your charity I shed, S-H-D, shared, have appeared the sort of friend that dumps his works on you when you are already overloaded, sucks up praise and encouragement, expects reviews, then departs and you begin to break down. Of course, I understand the financial difficulties. For a real holiday, it should be not only with pay, but with more than pay. I am sure there must be funds somewhere that are meant for such a purpose. If they cannot be found or tapped, nothing would give me more pleasure than to become one. I could, for instance, spare £50, and more if this rise in my wages occurs. But perhaps this will seem rather impertinent. Forget it if it does. I can only say that Trinity was very kind to me when I was in a dreadful pinch in the early war years. Footnote there. And I should prefer this way of being grateful by helping far its most distinguished member and wife towards the sun. Bless you both. Do we want to interrupt with a footnote? Or?
Yes, go ahead.
Uh, 157. Trinity College, of which Kathleen Farrar's husband Austin was chaplain, had reduced the fees for the education of Tolkien's sons when they were undergraduates there.
Okay.
So apparently they got his stipend cut or something. I return a copy of Lewis, and that's the second footnote. Perhaps C.S. Lewis's review of the Fellowship of the Ring in Time and Tide, 14th of August, 1954. That's not I sent a copy of Encounter in which one of Audin's volleys occurred, much the same but longer than the NYS Times. New York. New York Sunday Times. Audrun reviewed the Fellowship of Ring in the New York Times Book Review on Sunday, 31st October 1954, and in Encounter, November 1954. I got Encounter for you so that you need not return it. The end seemed to have been a success generally, even with Muir. And then another footnote. Edwin Muir, reviewing the Two Towers and the Observer on 21st November 1954, wrote of the ends, symbolically they are quite convincing, but they are full of character too, as formidable and strange as a forest of trees going to war.
Mm.
But A is a better critic. As usually with me, they grew rather out of their name than the other way about. I always felt that something ought to be done about the particular Anglo-Saxon word ent for giant or mighty person of long ago, to whom all old works were ascribed. And if it had a slightly philosophical tone, though in ordinary philology it is quite unconnected with any present participle of the verb to be, also interesting. I am hopelessly behind in the appendices to Volume 3, but I have be bothered with many things, and Chris, too overwhelmed to help with maps. Just can't be helped, I'm at it. And that's the end of the
Okay. What do you think?
So in Genesis 6, it talks about Nephilim, which were the product of angels and men mating, well, women, angels and women mating, and so it's interesting that ends could be a derivative of that. They were characterized as being putting a burden on the general world because of all the resources that they required for their survival. So they became an enemy of mankind.
Interesting. And yeah, so that's your biblical equivalent to it. But you know, in the Silmarillion and all that, where it's is it Vanya or she says there needs to be something to defend.
Right.
So they explain all that in Silmarillion and such, the creation of the ends.
Right. I guess I'm thinking about the. To me, the Bible is history. So to me, that would be the origin of where that idea comes from.
Okay.
Sort of the seed that was planted and then repurposed.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
That's what leapt out at me. What about you?
Not just the conversation we had, not a ton. As I said, I'm also, because my back's hurting so much, I'm kind of in a haze of pain, so I'm having trouble tracking. Want to hand that back to me? I'll read the next letters,
sure.
And we'll see what Corey's status is. Any response from him?
Nothing. He's dark.
Okay. So this is 158 from a letter to Rainer Unwin, his publisher, December 2nd, 1954. A comment on the blurb on the dust jacket of Houghton Mifflin's edition of The Two Towers. I have only just had time to glance at the H.M. jacket stuff. This account must have been written by someone who has not read the book, but relied on hearsay inaccurately remembered. Ooh, ouch. The giving away of the plot is, of course, a silly and unnecessary procedure. But at least the plot given away might be that of the book described. Or is that part of the game? Well, so apparently the insert was supposed to give you a little blurb about what the book is about. somebody who wrote it wasn't even close. So, and then let's see, I don't see a reply. I don't see. I'm looking ahead to see if they reply to that. There's no footnote or reply. Just clearly Tolkien was not happy with whatever wackiness was written there. And that was it for 158. So if you don't mind, I'll go on to 159 since it's a lot long. Unless you want to discuss that further.
No, that's
But
fine.
the joys of editorial. When I was interviewed, I've been interviewed a number of times, but this is the one that stood out the most because they just so distorted what I said. And we both recorded the interview.
Yeah.
And this was a company out of India. This is during the whole .com boom days. And so it was for a big tech company, services provider. And we were one of their clients. We were using a whole bunch of overseas India developers, QA and development and such, about 20 developers. And so they interviewed me, hoping to put it in their promotional materials. So then finally they did. And it was barely the same that I had said. They tweaked it. Yeah, I'll talk about spin. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so far from. And what was most aggravating is the language was dumbed down so much. So it made me sound like an idiot.
So there was so much spin on it, it gave you vertigo?
Yeah. But they were trying to make it more accessible to a wider audience. Like, you're selling this to text and business people like me, CTOs, making me sound like a 19-year-old, is not going to help your sales. Can you please use some of the language I actually used instead of this really dumbed down monosyllabic stuff? And so they did a few tweaks, but it was still, I'm still embarrassed when that pops up in web searches. It's just so far off from what I said. Yes, I was happy with their service, and so that's why I was willing to do the interviewing. But just, the way the editorial folks just distorted the heck out of it.
Misrepresented.
Oh, severely. Other than that we were happy with their services, but they just, it was so bad. I'm like, why don't, and they would put some of it in quotes. And they're like, that's not a quote, that's a paraphrase. If you're going to quote it accurately. Oh, and I've seen the same thing. Somebody years ago grabbed one of my research papers with role-playing gaming and stuck it in, shoehorned it into a whole article about animal role-playing game video games, like goats and stuff like that. There are these animal role-playing game video games out there. Now, the paper they're quoting from is me talking about tabletop role-playing gaming and the benefits of tabletop role-playing games, not electronic. Electronic is different pros and cons than tabletop. You know this.
And they were trying to. And
they shoehorned it into this animal one, and the quotes are just wonky. Just like, and they made it look like they had interviewed me, and they didn't. They did not interview me at all. They were just, oh man. So I had to put up all sorts of things going, this is bogus, this is bogus. They're trying to make it look like I endorsed what their product is, and never talked to them. It's a real problem out there. And so I could understand him, like some editorial person who didn't read the book, who just kind of went like, give me a quick summary, conflated it with something else, and went, oh, it sounds like this, I'll just write this. And not even close. And how aggravating it is when editors just completely distort your words. I choose my words very carefully.
I'm self-published, so I don't have the editor issue.
Yeah.
But I did run into an issue where they have a little section that says, read a synopsis, and it's like, okay, I don't want to give it the plot because it's really, the interest is based on the discovery of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And if you tell people the plot, then...
Yeah, but you can just use a hook. You can just synopsis a little
right,
piece
but
of it.
It's an art, I guess is what I'm saying. It's not formulaic. You can't just plug in words. You have to be careful with it.
Sure, of course.
And I find it a bit difficult at times.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a talent unto itself. I can bloviate with the best of them. It is hard for me to be pithy. I have no trouble writing a 50-page research paper or any paper Like everybody else was struggling at 2 or 3 pages on a topic. I had no trouble doing 10 or 20 and 30 pages.
Yeah.
Getting it down to 2 or 3 pages could take me months, if not years, to get a 50-page down to 2 or 3 pages. This has been a problem with the textbook. I started, it has to be 30 pages for this textbook for Penn State and on RPG therapy, and I immediately had 90 pages worth of content. And I've been trying to get it down to the 30 pages, and I'm still up around 40, 50 pages. And I've been working on this for like 2 years.
You could publish it in 3 volumes.
They won't let me. It's their textbook. I don't have that say. I have to get it down to the 30-page maximum. And I have to cover very certain topics to a certain level of depth. It's something I struggle with. So, yeah, I mean, I would do fine if I was paid by the word, like back in the 1800s, like Les Miserables and stuff, Victor Hugo and these others. I have no problem writing an 800-page book. It's a fact. I've never done it. The only problem I would have is staying on task long enough to finish it. Ever,
yeah.
Right. But.
Master and Commander was turned into a movie.
Yeah, I saw
it. It was based on a series of a guy.
Don't you know? You should always choose the lesser of 2 evils.
Yes. The thing was that movie combined like the first 5 books in his series.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. And I never read them, so I didn't know.
And Mel Gibson was totally wrong for that character.
Russell Crowe.
Or Russell Crowe was totally wrong for that character.
Yeah.
Because, well, he was writing from the 1800s. His vision of the character was a particular type of fit, overweight, what we'd consider overweight, but very fit. So, he's got a lot of bulk to him, but it's not really muscle. It's insulation.
Mm-hmm.
So Russell Crowe, he's, gladiator.
Mm-hmm.
He's the wrong kind of fit for the character.
Is that really that important for the role, though?
Well,
did he get the rest of it right, other than just his body build? Because if it's just the body build, that's
well, that was the biggest thing. The other thing, well, like I said, it was the first 5 books of his series, but his series was like 100 books.
But as far as Russell Crowe, as far as being the wrong person, other than his body build, did he deliver it wrong? Other than that, I haven't read it, so I don't know.
It's just a totally different style. It's a more wordy style because he's getting paid by the word.
Well, anyway, back to this. Just editors can really butcher an author's intent.
Well, I guess another comparison is John Carter of Mars.
Yeah.
I've read the original Iron Rice Burroughs, and he's kind of in the same boat. He's got different ideas where he's thinking that Mars is possibly a habitable planet.
Right. Yeah, because back then people thought that. Yeah.
And so the plot point of Deva not wanting to get married comes across to us is like, well, just divorce him. Back when the author wrote it, that was sacrosanct. You could not divorce anybody.
Right.
And so it's just kind of glossed over, and it comes across as, well, I don't see the dilemma for the character.
Okay. All right. But I guess the point is, Tolkien had a very specific vision. Whoever they assigned as an editor to this did not get it at all.
It seems like he went with another one who had a better grasp.
Yeah. Okay, number 159 from a letter. And by the way, if you're streaming, watching this, either during the live stream or the recorded version, please feel free to comment, and we do respond to comments. If we can't do it during the live show because you don't comment during the live show, but you do it after the recorded one, we usually comment on the next month's show to any of your comments that you made. So please feel free. Any contributions you have. Or just thoughts, thinking out loud. Number 159 from a letter to Dora Marshall, the 3rd of March, 1955. A reply to a letter from a reader of Lord of the Rings. I had great difficulty. It took several years to get my story published. And it is not easy to say who is most surprised at the result, myself or the publishers. But it remains an unfailing delight to me to find my own belief justified that the fairy story is really an adult genre and one for which a starving audience exists. I said so more or less in my essay on the fairy story in the collection dedicated to the memory of Charles Williams. but it was a mere proposition which awaited proof.
So, fairy story.
On fairy stories, his lecture.
Well,
Monsters and
I guess
Critics,
he's
all
talking
that.
about fairy tales.
Right, yeah, that's what he means.
Well, I'm thinking about
But his version of them,
what he was
Beowulf
thinking.
and...
What he was thinking in the genre that's grown out of it. I'm not sure it.
Well, that's what people were equating it to, and he was saying, no, it's more than this. Because Beowulf would get categorized as that. His work would get categorized. And he's seeing now that there was a wider audience. It's not just children's stories, that it has a wider appeal. But he puts in quotes, fairy story. Because that's what people were calling it. And he had a big lecture on fairy stories, monsters and critics and such, about why it should be taken seriously rather than just poo-pooed as children's stuff.
Yeah.
As C.S. Lewis said to me long ago, more or less, I do not suppose my memory of his dicta is any more precisely accurate than his of mine. I often find strange things attributed to me in his words. Quote, if they won't write the kind of books we want to read, we shall have to write them ourselves, but it is very laborious, end quote. Being a man of immense power and industry, his trilogy was finished much sooner amidst much other work. But at last my slower and more meticulous, as well as more indolent and less organized, machine has produced its effort. The labor! Exclamation mark. I have typed myself nearly all of it twice, and parts more often, not to mention the written stages! Exclamation mark. But I am amply rewarded and encouraged to find that the labor was not wasted. One such letter as yours is sufficient, and furnishes more than any author ought to ask. I knew Charles Williams well his last few years, partly because of Lewis's good habit of writing to authors who pleased him, which put us both in touch with Williams, and still more because of the good fortune amid disaster that transferred Williams to Oxford during the war. But I do not think we influenced one another at all! Exclamation mark. Too set and too different. We both listened, in CSL's rooms, to large and largely unintelligible fragments of one another's works read aloud, because CSL, marvelous man, seemed able to enjoy us both. But I think we both found the other's mind, or rather mode of expression and climate, as impenetrable when cast into literature as we found the other's presence in conversation delightful. So that was interesting commentary about that. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Spaced it out. Sorry.
Okay.
Refresh my memory.
Well, so,
I need to
you know, he's talking about the fairy story stuff and glad that adults are enjoying it, etc. That's, you know, that there's people out there craving this kind of content. He suspected, but nobody had any proof of it, that he and C.S. Lewis and Charles Williams, when they would share their works together, they didn't always get it, each other's writings, as much as they enjoyed each other's company. But C.S. Lewis seemed to get both of theirs as more an intermediary a little bit, and found their expression of their artwork difficult to relate to, each because of their different styles. And for me, I relate as a musician, among other areas. I relate this both as a musician and as a researcher. On the musician side, the statement where he says that, where'd it go? If they don't write the kind of books we want to read, we shall have to write them ourselves. So in my case, if they won't publish the kind of music I like to listen to, I'll have to compose it myself and record it, perform it, all of that, which is what I've done. Right now I have more than 200 pieces out there. Some are derivative of other styles intentionally, right? I was experimenting with trying to do a certain style at the time, and others are definitely me. For better or worse, they're my own distinctive expression as synthetic Zen.
Well, when I started trying writing, I tried writing a fantasy novel.
Yep.
And I did a short start of it and handed it to someone to look at and see what they thought. And it was interesting. His reaction was, I can't make heads or tails of this. And it was because he wasn't a person who enjoyed
that genre.
that kind of
Okay.
fiction, so it was a foreign
My-
language to it.
My first attempt at writing like that, I was writing about a campaign I was running, so that was my motivation. So it was based on that, but enhanced by story. And I did it as one of my English assignments when I was at Realms, which was a school of gifted knowledge. I was in high school, and the teacher lost my paper. She still gave me an A, but she lost my paper, and it was like 8 pages of handwritten manuscript, right?
Yeah.
And she'd give me feedback, and I'd given her a semi-complete version, waiting for her feedback and grade, and she lost it. It was so upsetting. She then later left the school, unknown reasons, and then she submitted as a short story. Now she rewrote it and improved it, as an English teacher and such, but I got no credit for it whatsoever, and all I had were notes and stuff. I had no way to prove because I didn't have the original. And it didn't win any awards or anything, but she submitted as a short story back in the 80s. I was so distressed that somebody would do that. They could be ripped off like that.
Yeah.
But she'd already been discharged from the school for whatever reason. I never found out why. And so that was very discouraging. Now, generally, the only attempts I've ever made have been related to writing modules, like for Tolkien each year. That's been kind of my main
When I was
story writing.
starting writing, I was having trouble with feeling free to share it because of fear of that kind of thing happening.
Yeah.
Corey says he can't make it.
Okay. And then on the researcher side, as far as nobody's doing it, so back in 2004 is when I released my first papers about the potential of role-playing games and what needed to be done to improve them. Now I'm running into people who, because they read that paper back in high school, they're now finishing their PhDs or have finished their PhDs on this topic because they read that paper in 2004.
The one that you wrote.
10 years ago, yeah, the one that I wrote, that was I put out there everywhere, motivated them to choose their bachelor's major, their master's, and their PhD dissertations and everything, their topics. It's upsetting. It's like, I don't want to be responsible for that much debt. And I've now run into a handful of these people who their master's and PhD level were finishing them. They say we're completely motivated because the couple of papers I wrote back between 04 and 07, and when they were younger, and they chose a career because of something I wrote. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad, and I'm also really shaken up by that. That's really disturbing.
Does it make you feel like we're in a paper bag with the whole
Yeah, no, but there's now books coming out and it's been doing like this. I can't keep up. Like before, there was very little research out there. Now I can't keep up with it. That's why I have a whole research team now trying to help keep up with it because it's doing this exponentially. Back in 2004, there were maybe 50 research studies, 50, 60, depending on what you consider a research study. By 2012, there were still only maybe 100, not that many more. And I believe I was thoroughly searching every database all over the web. I'm very good at finding things that other people can't find. Couldn't find it. But then around 2015-16, I was getting inundated with emails on these topics. And you start seeing 2016, 17, 18, 19 now, every month something's coming out now. Research papers, books, conferences, like it's happening all over the world now. It has just gone like this. I can't keep up with it. There's so much content now. I get emails every week from researchers asking for questions and such. So now that's why I've got a team of about a dozen research assistants trying to keep up. But back in 04, it wasn't happening. I kept saying, we need to do this. And it's awesome. Because I was thinking I was out standing in a field all my own, right? Which is kind of a joke, right? You're standing in the field all alone for a reason versus being outstanding, right? Yeah. I was thinking it was more standing out in the field being Looney Tunes. But it turns out I'm in good company now, whether it's the Looney Tunes or not.
Well, you were the first person out in the field, but now
I wasn't the first person, but I did the big call for people to start communicating and working together. Because everybody was off in silos doing stuff. Nobody was sharing. And I created a website to start sharing all that. It made a difference. So I'm glad, but it was kind of this thing of like, well, this is what I want to see happen. We'll have to start making it ourselves. And so I started putting out a bunch of papers and such, and then that helped. and now others are starting to do it, and it's become a thing, which is awesome. The first research paper related to role-playing games really goes back to book is 1983. There really isn't a book before that on role-playing gaming research. So, but there have only been a handful of them. Now they're popping out of the woodwork, but both self-published and through other sources, as well as we're working on our own. So it can relate to initially really sticking your neck out in a whole other area, right? It's not completely original, it's derivative. What he was doing was derivative, and yet it was also original, right? What he was putting together in an original way sparked a whole new
He was changing
genre.
the names and the situations.
But he also put it together, so if you look at like George MacDonald's A Golden Key, and then you look at Tolkien's rewrite of that with, oh gosh darn it, Tolkien,
That's what the internet's for.
George, well the books are downstairs.
Yeah.
Golden Key, he rewrote it as, the name of it. I'm just trying to remember which one. Okay, because Tolkien was right to write the preface. When he went to reread it, he couldn't stand it. So then he did Smith and Wooden Major. Smith and Wooden Major is a rewrite of the Golden Key story.
What's the Golden Key story?
That's where the kid gets the Golden Key. So the village tradition is there's a cake, and if they get the Golden Key, they get to go see fairy and all this stuff. Anyway, we've gone through. We read through the whole thing a few years ago.
Must have been asleep.
Okay, let's see the summary. Golden Key is a fairy story about a boy who wants to find the key that lies at the end of the rainbow, and a motherless girl who is neglected by her father. The boy finds the key, but he doesn't know into what lock it goes. The girl is led away from her home and wanders in the woods of fairyland. The two eventually meet in a cottage inhabited by a beautiful noblewoman named Grandmother. Grandmother sends the pair, Mossy, as he was known to his friends, and Tangle, as she was called by her father's negligent servants, on a quest to find the lock in which the key fits. During their journey, they cross a sea of shadows. The shadows are beautiful trees, flowers, birds, beasts, and people. But the children, who are now grown, old, cannot see what is casting the shadows. Eventually, the two are separated, as Grandmother warned them might happen. They press on their separate ways. Tangle finds the old man of the sea, who sends her to the old man of the earth, who in turn sends her to the old man of the fire. None of them can tell her how to get the shadow country that she and Mossy saw. Mossy meets the old man of the sea, by the way, spoilers, after Tangle, because Mossy has the golden key. The old man sends him a different way. Eventually, Mossy and Tangle are reunited, and they find the keyhole in which the golden key fits. To their delight, it leads to the country that casts the beautiful shadows. And Douglas Anderson, Tolkien was once asked to write a preface to the story, and had found, who had read the story before and had really enjoyed it. When he went back and reread it, Tolkien wrote it was ill-written, incoherent, and bad in spite of a few memorable passages. This is all the Tales Before Tolkien book, which I have downstairs. We've gone through this before. So Anderson goes on to note that Tolkien's preface, which was never finished, took on a life of its own, so instead it eventually turned into Tolkien's own lovely fairy story, Smith and Wooden Major.
That kind of reminds me of, I read the Robotech stories all the way
Yep,
through.
yep.
Then I tried to go back and reread it, and my reaction is the same as
Yeah,
Tolkien's talking
sometimes
about.
as we change what we once loved, change no longer so.
Yeah, I just couldn't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of amusing.
Yeah. So, anyway, so it is interesting how there's these major changes that happen. And this is Tolkien really was embarrassed about what he was writing, right? It was his little pet project that he was always kind of embarrassed to admit to his peers, right, in Oxford and such, that he was doing.
At least he never had to deal with the blowback that George Lucas got.
What do you mean?
When he sat down to write movie 1, 2, and 3, he knew it was going to be ill received because his target audience was for children, right? The problem is when he started writing 1, 2, and 3, those children had grown up into adults, and they still wanted to see the same kind of story, but they wanted an adult spin to it.
Now, what do you mean? I know he did that with 1, 2, and 3, but he did not write 4, 5, and 6 for children. He wrote them in the style of the old classic Saturday matinee, just like Indiana Jones. They were in the style of the matinees he grew up with watching.
Okay, I might be mistaken on that, but I know for 1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3, he wrote it for his daughter, Tiger.
Yeah, which is why we get Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
The cause of the fall of the Republic.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of his daughter, Tiger. It's her fault. Well, it's his decision to try to placate her.
If only they killed Jar Jar, they would have saved the Republic.
But if he would have stuck to the formula he originally went with, which was the action adventures of the matinee theater that he enjoyed, the Saturday matinees of the 1940s and such, I think he would have stayed on track better.
I saw a clip of him talking to the writers for 6, 7, and 9, and he's talking about, well, it's a musical, it's a repeating melody kind of thing.
A what?
He was kind of talking about how the story was supposed to be a repeating melody.
Yeah, the refrain, yeah, right, yeah.
So that's why, one of the biggest criticisms on YouTube about the last 3 movies is they're an attempt to rehash what happened.
Well, he also
didn't
do that.
Right, but
Disney folks did.
Some people are upset with the repetitive nature. They wanted to see something new. They wanted to see children growing up into adults and nobly expanding their horizons instead of Luke Skywalker turning into this old man chugging green milk. You know.
Well, did you see how Mark Hamill, how critical he was?
Yeah,
how upset he is.
Yeah, he kept quiet about it, but you could tell he was.
He's not anymore. He's been all over the talk shows. It was last year or two, lambasting.
It's like he had a sour stomach.
Yeah, he was not happy about what they did.
But,
well, he probably couldn't say that because usually he signed an NDA.
Yeah.
So he had to keep quiet until that expired.
Right.
And then he has not been happy about it at all.
Position to be in.
Yeah, well, we all deal with that. It's like I've had these little bit parts in these different films.
Personally, I liked 1, 2, and 3 because I was looking at the culture that George Lucas was putting into that.
Okay, the setting was fine.
And the sophistication of it.
Just the characters were.
Anakin was way too much of a whiny child.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, that is the prime target for the Sith, is whiny children.
Sure, yeah. Because that's when they're vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah.
And it worked. They got him. Until the very end, though, Luke saved him, but yeah. Yep.
Well, the other thing is that the prophecy is a big plot hole because something that the Jedi should understand is they're at the top of the cycle, and any bringing the cycle back into balance really hurts them.
I'm convinced that if he would have kept his momentum on the Star Wars films back when he was doing them, rather than waiting 10, 15 years, whatever it was, to pick up the thread after, I think it would have been very different films. I think it would have been much closer to the style of the original 3. I think they would have had a lot better coherence and connectedness.
There's
a lot of PC stuff that got worse and worse.
There's a YouTube video called How Star Wars Was Saved in the Edit. And what it does is it shows you the uncut film. And the first, it doesn't have the text crawl. And the first quarter to half of the movie is Luke trying to convince Biggs that there's a battle going on in orbit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've seen it, and
no, I know the whole original version.
It's kind of interesting
because I had the comic book of the full version of the film.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the version that came out, you're going, who's this Biggs guy? Mm-hmm. And in the first version of the movie, he was a central character. In the comic book, when it starts with Solo
and Jabba the Hutt. And Jabba the Hutt is not a big lizard guy; he's just a really big fat guy, bipedal. And
Yeah, there's uncut footage of the guy wearing a fur.
yes, yeah, I've seen that. And so then they did the edited version where from the old footage where he walks around him,
Yeah,
and
I
then they
kinda
add
like
him
that.
stepping on his tail as
I
they
kinda like that,
superimposed
actually.
it. I thought it was funny. Yeah. Yeah, I have. I guess I have seen these other scenes because I have seen those. I don't know where, but yeah. Well, anyway,
Sorry, we.
no, this is yeah. We go into Star Wars a little far, but where these things go off in different directions, and when you read something in the past and you reread it later, our life experiences, our brains change. Like every time we recall something and then it goes back into storage, we alter it a little bit every time, right? We corrupt our memory every time we access a memory.
Well,
Our memories are
apparently
so
I have
fallible.
less trouble with that than most people.
Why do you say that?
I can watch a movie and I have to wait 10 years or so before I can watch it again.
That's not what that means.
Well,
If you were tested, there would be certain things that you do very well at recalling, putting back, very specific things. And then there would be a whole slew of other things that you think you're 100% correct about, but testing would show you were not.
fair enough.
And everybody has the perception that their memory is accurate.
Right.
But what neuroscience shows, and remember that's part of my background, is no, our memories are highly flawed. And that's one of the reasons I like to record everything.
Which
we
is why an
broadcast
eyewitness is
and
an
record.
unreliable witness.
What's that?
Which is why an eyewitness is
Is
an
a horrible,
unreliable.
yeah. It's so easy to corrupt one's memory and have no idea it's corrupted. Yeah. Anyway, so anyway, I thought that was an interesting piece about their different styles, and though they really enjoyed each other, but they didn't really connect on each other's writing style. They respected each other as people, but not necessarily each other's works the same way, because they had very different styles, which is very interesting because of how they either shared and such and influenced each other, yet they were still distinctively their own style. Composition I just had to finish last month. First one I've done in a while is for our wedding processional. That's my gift to Katie, my fiance. She wanted something original, but her cousins have taken a lot of pieces she would like that were distinctive. And so she likes the Trout Quintet, she likes Pachelbel's Canon D, and she likes the wedding march, which is actually Wagnerian, by the way. Most people don't know that the Here Comes the Bride theme comes from Wagner. Most people don't know that. Yeah. I was a little surprised to find that myself. So,
German,
well, but just the melody we're talking about, the music for it.
not the word.
So it was later people added stuff on top of it, but it goes back to Wagner stuff. It was called the Wedding March, but it's all changed in modern time. But the theme goes back to Wagner. So I composed a piece that had all three of those elements mathematically in them, but were not them, right? That it's all original music, but they were homages to each of these. So it's in a quintet, violas, cellos, double basses, violins, and piano. And she wanted to be very happy, so it's all in a major key with lots of little piano triplets and things like that, and violin triplets, etc. But still the bass for a processional, that there's a beat to walk to. And so the first third is the prelude before anybody does the processional. The second third is everybody doing the processional except the bride. And then the last third is the bride. And then that's signaled by the Here Comes the Bride melody-like, but it's not, you recognize it, but it's mathematically, it's changed, but the intervals are relevant. It's made in a happier key and such. So, it's a classical piece, but originally made, and it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Everybody's going to have different stylistic preferences, and this was made to order, right? She listened to it, asked for a few tweaks. The original version I did was much prettier. It was softer, and she thought it was too somber. She wanted it more celebratory and happy, so I had to add all these triplets and pick up the pace and everything else. So it's much more energetic than I personally would do as a style. And so, like, you know, here between C.S. Lewis and Charles Williams and Tolkien, they each derived works from each other, right? They took bits and pieces from each other, but expressed it in their distinctive way, right? And
didn't they make a deal where Lewis wrote a fantasy novel and Tolkien
right, well, Tolkien had to do
novel?
sci-fi, which is the Western-esque Numenor sci-fi version that he did, which is in Lost Tales and such, where there's a
I don't think I've actually read it.
big metal battleship and a kid talking in London about it. Yeah, you should read it. That's where they challenged each other to do that. That was exactly right. But they still really enjoy each other and their conversation, even though they didn't always connect on each other's writing, which is interesting. Any further thoughts?
Nope.
Do we want to go ahead and do this, or should we wait till we've got other people with us to continue?
What time is it?
It is 2:20.
Do you want to end it early or?
I'm fine either way.
So am I.
Okay, let's go ahead and wrap it up. I hate to kind of continue this reading without the rest of the group here.
And I suppose you're not feeling all that comfortable.
I'm in a lot of pain, yes.
Maybe we should end it just
even with all the painkillers I've taken, I'm in a lot of pain.
Yeah, you might remember more of the meeting if we wait until.
Because for me to stop hurting, I have to do this.
Yeah.
This is the only way it takes the pressure off my spine.
Let's call it now then.
So because we don't want to miss out doing the reading with Chris and Brian and Corey and the others, we're going to defer for next month, continuing the Fall of Gondolin from where we left off. And I've still got it bookmarked and everything, so we will continue. But we did make progress on the letters, so we read 150.
Did we actually finish that one?
Yeah, that was 158. We just finished discussing. It took a while to discuss it, which is good. So we covered 157, 158, and 159 today. And so we'll pick up tomorrow with 160, which is moderately short.
You mean next month?
Next month, sorry. And 161, 162 are super short. 163 is
super long.
Quite long. Pages long.
It's got to be under the 10,000, the short note length.
Yeah. So we'll pick up at 160 on March 6, 1955 next month. But we will do it. We will be here. So again, that's what, July 20th?
Yeah.
July 20th, we'll be meeting 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific time. Please do comment, ask questions that you'd like us to discuss, or comment on next month. If you missed the live broadcast, please comment on the video. Again, you can get all of our meeting notes and schedule updates, etc. on the website, tolkienscholars.org. We've pretty much stopped using Facebook completely. We do tweet, though, on Twitter. We post when the notes are posted and upcoming events and such, so we use Twitter. And then we are on Meetup. If you're in the greater Spokane, North Idaho area, you want to actually come to these meetings, you can go ahead and RSVP through Meetup through the Spokane and Coeur d'Alene role-playing games Meetup. You'll see, you can find this a Tolkien Society to RSVP through. So thank you for joining us. Wherever you may be well, and Namaste.
Namaste.